Hey, it's me, Justin, your resident psychopath. On this episode, I talked to Courtney Bussard, and she is a life coach. I'm trying to make varsity, so I need all the coaching I can get. The first 20 minutes, the audio is a little fucked up, but it gets better. Like I said, we're living and learning, putting it together as we go, so show us some grace. And for the love of God, subscribe to the YouTube. Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to another exciting episode and super not gay episode of If This Doesn't Work, I'll Kill Myself. This is Courtney. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Courtney.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. So you're back home.
Yeah.
From Colorado.
So I lived out in Colorado for 7 years, and I had to come home in November just because a family member was going through a lot of health things. And it's been a journey being here so far of giving up my life basically to come here, and living back in my hometown has been a little bit of an adjustment. But
because it's the first time you've been back to stay for... Yeah,
I had to come back for a few months when I was dealing with some health issues back in 2020, but it's different when it's like so sudden, you know, like, wow, this is, I just wasn't expecting it, I guess, and it was just felt very forced, I guess you could say.
Right.
I guess it was with my health stuff too, but I think it just felt a little bit different.
I get that.
Felt outside of myself.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah. So.
Yeah, you're not missing much here in Maryland.
I will say, coming back, I think you do start to have a different appreciation, because when I moved here, when I left Maryland, it was, I was like, fuck this. I can tell someone here.
Yeah,
of course I can.
In fact, you're required to go somewhere here.
Like, fuck this place. I hate this place. And coming back here, I definitely had some of those feelings, but it gave me when you live away for a little while, you end up having an appreciation for your hometown.
Yeah.
You're able to see it from a different lens, which
makes sense.
That has been my experience here. It hasn't been that bad. Right. You know?
Maybe because you get to leave too.
Totally.
I feel like part of my I love it. Obviously, it's like one of those things where it's not one or the other, right? Like everything. It's like I love it, but I'm over it. You know.
Totally.
I've never lived anywhere else though, but I can imagine. Yeah, it's just like for me. Well, it's the same thing as even when I get to like a routine, living in the same, it just feels like forever, you know? So that kind of builds to my like angst.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what has helped me is like, I've gone out and I've had different experiences. I don't have like the same, I can come back here with a little bit more peace because I have gone and lived some of my dreams.
Right.
I feel like I've changed as a person. Like I'm not coming back and doing the same things that I used to. Like I'm kind of just taking my life in Colorado and now I'm just here versus before it was like this like angsty, that angsty teenage, early 20s time that it was just like, get me out of here. And it just doesn't feel that way because it's like, okay, I can kind of settle. I've lived my life a bit.
And like you said, you're different.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the no man steps in the same river twice because it's not the same river and he's not the same man.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not that you're you are a life coach though.
Yes.
Which is interesting, and as a suicidal person, I figured I'd get you here.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kind of thinking myself. But life coach is something that they're interesting to me. I feel like I can see all the sides of it, Some people are like about life coaches, some people are not about them. I think that for me personally, I feel like I could use a team of people.
Totally.
I need more than a life coach. Like for me, it's like, not only do I think I need one, it's like I'd love a nutritionist, a life coach, a therapist, a this, a that. It's like, life's hard.
Yeah, and they all play their role. Like, I myself see a therapist, and when I'm working with clients, I always suggest to them, definitely working with a therapist, because there's a difference between, like, a therapist and a life coach. Like,
sure, actually, you mentioned that. What's kind of the difference there?
Yeah, so the difference is a therapist is going to work with you. It's like it's the past, whereas a life coach can take some of your past, but we help you pave the steps to move forward. Therapist is like, they're really just helping you build awareness. They're helping you kind of with the emotional side of your past. Whereas someone comes to a life coach and they're like, okay, these things have happened in my past, but like I want to take a step forward.
Right.
So that's really the difference. And a lot of times, like when I'm working with a client and I notice that these patterns keep coming up, and it's a lot deeper than we're not quite ready to move forward, that's when it's like, okay, I think we should take this conversation to a therapist.
Right.
Have them give some insight.
Yeah, so it's not one or the other.
No,
right.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, makes sense.
I will see a therapist for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
and
same.
Team therapy, for sure.
People are so sick of hearing it from me,
yeah,
but I just what's frustrating is like, not frustrating, but funny. It's like, people will be just clearly neurotic as fuck. Yeah. They're stuck in patterns, and they'll just like, it's like they'll do anything but therapy, anything but therapy.
I hear this quote all the time. It's like, the people that are going to therapy are there because of the people that are not going to therapy.
Interesting.
Like, the people that are so resistant to therapy are often the times the ones that are, repeating the cycle and continuing the trauma patterns and things like that. And it's a tough thing to witness someone in that cycle, and it's
exactly. Yes, exactly. You want to just shake them.
You have to help yourself. Like, no one can pull you out of it.
For sure. I was a drug addict really bad, so I know that very well, that no one else can make you do something. You have to be ready to do it. But you'll hear a lot just like, I don't need it. It's like, well, you don't need a fork and a knife to eat a steak.
Yeah.
But it's helpful.
Yeah, but I love what you said about, like, needing a team of people, because I agree. It's not just going to rely on one person, but ultimately, like, you're the center of it, but then you can have those support systems around you, like the nutritionist, people that can hold you accountable on different areas of your life and help you have, like, an overall transformation.
Right.
That's important.
I do too, because we're asking a lot of ourselves, just in life, in this society. I mean, genuinely, like, you need to be a nutritionist, a life coach, a financial advisor, a relationship expert, someone who can communicate. It's like, there's a lot, and to act like it's not, it's just like, I understand if we were hunting and gathering, we wouldn't need a team, right? Yeah. But there's a lot going on, Totally. There's a lot of moving parts, and basically I got you in here for an hour free life coaching session. No, I'm just kidding. I'm interested in it, and what does it look like functionally? Do you do vision boards and stuff? Like, in my head, when I think of life coaching, I think of vision boards.
Well, I love vision boards, but the reality is sometimes some people are not that into vision boards. It's like, I kind of work with what is going to help someone.
What's specific to them?
What's specific to them? Like, no life coaching session. Like, I have a coaching program that I'm running, but it's like, I still tailor it to meet the people's needs, because me saying, you need to make a vision board, and then that person just puts a vision board in the closet, it's not going to be effective. So it's like, okay, so what is going to be effective for you? Right. So life coaching is just, it's meeting people where they are to take them to where they want to go. Right. It's not just like, this. Yeah, I think it's important to have a lot of tools in a toolbox, and then you kind of pick and choose try things out with a client. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the other important thing when it comes to, even if you're not working with a coach, like, if you're trying to go on a path of, like, personal development, understanding that if something's not working, it doesn't mean throw the whole thing away. It's just like trying something else. Right. Just because one person doing something that's not sticking for you doesn't mean that nothing's gonna work for you. Right. In fact, there's a great analogy I do that's like, some people will go to one therapy session one time with one therapist, and they'll be like, therapy's not for me. Yes. And I tell them, that's like going into the movie theater, seeing a movie, and going, movies aren't for me. Yeah. I tried it. Yeah. No, I'm not. Movies aren't my thing. It's like, well, you just saw one movie. Exactly. Yeah. So people are quick to throw the whole experience away, It's like, I've had a bad teacher, and that subject sucked, And then you get a good teacher in that subject, and you're like, oh. History is kind of neat. It changes your perspective, and I think it's just having that open mind, not just writing it off when something isn't going the way that it's supposed to. It's like, okay, well, that's not it, but, like, maybe this other thing will be. And it's like, it's work. That's another thing. Like, it's easy to avoid, because it doesn't feel good in the moment, right? It's like, it's one of these things that's like temporary, if you will, struggle, or like, at least uncomfortability for long-term benefit. It's like postponing whatever gratification that is. Yeah. So. Yeah. And I think the other thing about when it comes to, like, working with a therapist or working with a life coach or working with a nutritionist, it's not just hiring the person and then your problems are going away. When you said about work, it's like, that's when the work starts. Yeah. It's like your life coach, your therapist, they're here to guide your experience, but ultimately you're the person that's going to have to change your life. Right. They can give you guidance, but, like, it's not just because you're signing up with a life coach does not mean
they're like, I want my money back. My life still sucks.
Yes, I've had that happen to me.
Hilarious.
I'm like, all right, well, you didn't show up to the call.
Sure.
You didn't do the work. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, like, if you're, I'm a nutritionist, but you're just eating Snickers all day, every day.
Yeah, like
you're not doing the work.
Yeah.
It is work. What got you into it?
Well, after
Let's go back.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 2019.
Can you say that again?
Yeah.
What is that?
Ulcerative colitis. So it's a form of inflammatory bowel disease. So I have inflammation of my colon, and it's a chronic condition. I have to take medication for it. I was hospitalized, and it's great. It's
exciting stuff. Yeah.
It's pretty miserable when I'm in a flare, but so I was diagnosed with that in 2019. Was hospitalized.
So how old are you then?
I was 24.
Okay,
then,
so had it been an issue that went undiagnosed, or it was new at 24?
It was. I had some symptoms, like, in my earlier 20s,
Gotcha.
but then it just, like...
drastically worse.
Yeah, it got drastically worse, but looking back, like, when I look, hindsight 2020, everything makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I was working jobs that I hated. I was in a relationship. I was, like, living with a partner, and, like, it was just not a good situation. I was very stressed. My self-esteem was really low self-worth, and my mental health was just not where it was not ideal. And it's always like, what came first, right? Was it my mental health issues that caused my illness?
Correlation.
Or was it the opposite? Was it my gut issues that were causing my mental health issues? So I was like,
and that's so interesting. Like even that connection, people are reluctant to make. Even myself, like, so I'm a naturally skeptical person. That's how my brain works, is just a skeptic. So it's hard for me to believe in things that aren't completely founded in, like, a lot of scientific data.
Totally.
But then again, so anyways, the mind and body connection is just I'm at 34 and I'm still just, like, blown away by how powerful that is. Like, people just underestimate. I mean, people can get sick. Your mental health being bad could give you that. Which is, people don't know that. Like, that's a real thing, though. Yeah. People just separate the two so often, and it's like, you cannot.
Yeah, they say, so our mind is not just up here. Our mind is our whole entire body.
Thank you so
much. And our mind is
that.
in our gut, especially. Like, what's going on in our gut can impact our mental health, and vice versa. That's why it's like, sometimes when it was really confusing for me back then, because I'm like, I knew, it made sense to me. I was like, okay, I know that I'm really struggling with my mental health, and I'm suicidal, and I'm depressed, and I'm having these gut issues, but, like, what is causing what? And it was really confusing for me I was like, if I focus on my mental health, will that help my gut? Or if I focus on my gut, will that help my mental health? And it was just, like, this really confusing thing. And ultimately, they affect each other.
Of course. And I really like that. Sorry to cut you off.
No,
the mind and when you said you're not just here.
Yeah.
So I did a meditation one time, and the guy's like, close your eyes. And I closed my eyes. He's like, think about where your feet are at. Think about where your hands are at, whatever. He's like, you're probably thinking of them from up here. Yeah. He's like, but you're not up there. Yeah. You're the whole thing. Yeah. And it was just so heavy to me. I'm like, oh fuck, I am thinking about it like as if I'm here, even with the eyes closed, right? Because it's like, the only reason we think we're up here is because our eyes are located here and our brains are there. But really, it really is the whole thing. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, because I've been learning a lot about, like, the physical body, the subtle body, and our subtle body mind is literally our entire being, and then some. Like, it's not just, like, this physical brain that is our mind. It's literally, our bodies are so wise.
Yes, but that's so hard to grasp.
It is.
Because you don't learn that. You're just like, this stuff is not even, this is barely even here. Yeah. It's there to help me grab stuff, but it's not, but they're connected. Have you heard of The Body Keeps the Score?
Yes, I actually need to read that book. I have it at my house right now, and I keep looking at it.
Have you heard of this, Mike? What is it? The Body Keeps the Score? Yeah. Okay, so there's this book that is highly acclaimed at this point. The Body Keeps the Score, and it's about what we're talking about. About how your physical body is affected by your mental health, basically, and traumas that happen and stuff like that. And, like, it sounds woo-woo to me, right? It just sounds like, okay, the skeptic in me is like, that doesn't sound real, but you can watch YouTube videos one after another of people having an emotional release from some work that's getting physically done on them. And I'm not saying I'm like a detective, right? But these don't seem fake. I mean, the way they're sobbing sometimes, or like whatever emotional outburst they have, it's like, it's hard to discount it. It really is. It's like, but you're telling me like the fact that I was molested is stored in trauma in my shoulder, you know? And then it's like, I don't know if it's that specifically related, but like, I'm definitely learning a lot more about it.
Yeah, through doing a lot of, like, I love breath work. Have you ever experienced breath work before? Yeah, breath work. Yeah, breath work. I've done it in like a lot of group settings, and
I think it's more powerful that way too.
And I've done like, so when I was really sick, I also had a flare of my ulcerative colitis. So back to like why I became a life coach. Basically, through all my health stuff. No, I love it. We'll get back to all of that, but just want to bring it back to
Please do.
So I became a life coach because through all of my health stuff, I just started on this like personal development journey, and I was like, I've always just been a person who's like, I do not have to let my circumstances hold me back. I do not have to let these, you know, I've just went on this journey for basically my entire life of like living my truth and staying true to myself and not letting circumstances hold me back. And I've always just been so inspired by that. And then through that journey of overcoming chronic health issues and getting to that place of like, wow, I have my life back, I was like, I should start a podcast. So that's when I launched my podcast. And then through the conversations that I was having and through just like getting so lit up by turning on the microphone and having these conversations, I was like, wow, I would love to be able to help people on a deeper level. So
getting lit up.
Yeah.
I love that.
Getting lit up.
I love that you use that terminology, because sometimes it's hard to know what you either called to do or feel drawn to do. Even how about that? Let's not even call it fate, right? Let's just say if something you're drawn to do, is that soul like follow what sets your soul on fire? Yeah. You know, and that's like, I love that, because you can feel it. If you're paying attention, you can feel it when you're, you know, and it's like, so sometimes I heard this recently in a podcast with this a therapist, psychologist, and he was saying that sometimes it's hard for people to know their authentic selves, or like know that that's in there. And he's like, well, have you ever felt inauthentic? Someone's like, yes, you know, like when you said yes when you should have said no, when you wanted to say no, how did that feel after, right? And he's like, well, who noticed that? Had to have been your authentic self, you know? Right. It's like, it's somewhere in there, you know what I mean? So sometimes it's easier to focus on when you're being inauthentic, because it's easier to spot, you know? Yeah. But if you can, notice when you're lit up. Notice when you feel that, you know, because sometimes it really is hard to notice, you know, unless you're paying attention. That's when it comes into getting help too. It's like having someone outside look in and go, hey, sometimes it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. You know?
Yeah. And I think that's like the other major thing that I've just been so inspired by, like within my own journey, is like following your curiosity of like, wow, this thing I'm really curious about, it feels really exciting to me. Following that, because you truly never know where that can lead you. Right. And I just like, that's the thing that I just like get really excited when I think about helping my clients, like helping them find their spark,
because yours was so big. Yeah. Like when you grab your freedom back, you know,
my life changed.
That's what I'm saying. Like when you get to experience like almost like this veil being lifted, and you want to share that. You're like, oh my God,
I can't not share it.
It's what I'm saying. It's like, why go through it all to not share it? It's like, I've been through a lot of shit, and I want to decipher that information to people. You know, I want to help other people, because it's like, I did that, you know, take it or leave it, but you're going to hit your head if you do it that way, you know?
Totally. Yeah. And I'm always just so inspired by like the pain to purpose. And I don't think that like, I also think there's just so much insight that we can gain through our life experiences, that like there's someone out there who's like needing to see your example of you going through something, needing to see like, hey, this person went through similar things to me and they turned their life around. So that means that I can too.
It's possible.
And that's really why I do everything that I do, is just to be that example for someone, and in hopes to like, so they don't keep spinning the cycles. They see a different path and they're like, wow, I don't have to wake up miserable every single day. I get to experience freedom regardless of my circumstances. I don't have to be a victim to chronic illness. Like, you know, all of the, I've always, you know, we always hear like a niche in like coaching, and it's like, I was telling my business coach, I was like, I don't have a niche, because like, I want to help the person with chronic illness. I want to help the person who wants to, you know, leave their hometown and travel the world. Like, I want to help the person.
Yeah. I can't relate even more.
Any person who wants to live their freaking truth. Right. And doesn't want like these things. Because I remember when I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, it felt so like I wanted my life to go this way, but my life is going this way. And it's like, no. I get to still have my life go this direction. And it's like helping people through that process too, because life can take us off track, and it's like, well, what's your truth?
Right.
What's the life?
So it's almost like that direction, but better. So it's like a little bit off and even better.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is like pain to purpose is like sometimes these circumstances, they can seem really freaking shitty and they can take us off track. But I truly believe in like the soul's journey of like these things are happening in life for a deeper reason that sometimes we don't even understand. And we don't have to understand it, but just not being the victim and being like, okay, this is for me for something.
Well, pain to purpose. So not recently, maybe it's probably a couple years ago now, I learned of post-traumatic growth. Mm-hmm. So PTG. So most people hear of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is, I just think that after hearing about post-traumatic growth, which probably sounds self-explanatory, it's the pain to purpose thing. It's like these things can happen in your life and they can harm you, but you can also use them to build on. Totally. You know what I mean? It's like if you tell me like, look back at your, biggest moments in life that changed something, it's like most of them are bad, in the moment or traumatic. And it's like, but they definitely helped my growth. They kickstarted me into knowing I needed to get better.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
And I think it's like, it's not about bypassing our experiences. Like, obviously we have to give ourselves the space to heal from them. Like, in no way, shape, or form am I like, if you went through a traumatic experience, am I like, you need to just turn your pain into your
bootstraps.
Right. No, absolutely not. And I don't believe in that. I think it's like recognizing that there's a grieving process. There's a whole process that you have to go through in order to get to that place where you can take steps forward. But it's like that reminder that you can eventually take steps forward. Yeah. It's not just like life is happening to me and all this shit sucks, and that's how you're going to keep attracting more things to you, right? So it's like just having faith, having hope, and I don't know, just honoring where you are, but seeing that, hey, eventually I can get to a place where I can take steps forward.
Right. I think that a lot of people get stuck in things and they don't even know they're stuck in them.
Totally.
You know what I mean? They're just caught in these routines and cycles, and people don't know. Like, a lot of people would, same with therapy or a life coach or anything, they just don't think they need it. You know? Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. If you go to the gym, you should have someone that's helping your mental. Totally. You know what I mean? Or do something. I mean, honestly, even if it's not that, maybe like journaling or even some type of self-reflection. Yeah. People aren't looking at their stuff.
And the reality is sometimes people aren't ready for it. And that's okay too. Yeah. It's just, but it's, maybe you're not ready for a life coach or a therapist, but what is something that you could change? Like, it's not even just these massive changes. It's like, you can't keep doing the same things expecting a different result. Right. So you have to change something.
So then you ask yourself, like, okay, I'm not willing to go to therapy right now. Right? What am I willing to do?
Exactly. Just
so you lower that barrier. Here's the barrier. I'm not willing to climb that wall right now. Yeah. Can I lower the wall?
Exactly. Yeah. Just meeting yourself where you are. And
sometimes it takes actually asking yourself, like, am I willing to do that? Or am I just going to keep saying I'm going to do it? And it's like, be real, be honest. If you're not going to do it, that's okay. Yeah. See if you can lower the wall then.
Exactly.
And go, okay, well, maybe I'll try to journal every day all week, right? And then it's like, well, that's too big of a wall. Right. Lower the wall. Journal one day a week, right?
Yeah, even if it's not journaling, it's just like, anything. I can say 3 things that I'm grateful for out loud every single morning as I'm drinking my coffee. Yeah. Like, it can be as simple as that. Just something, like, I always, there's this, I don't remember the name of it, but it's like emotional, basically, like it's like a scale. It's like 10 is like bliss, ecstasy, like extreme positivity. As you have
10 doesn't exist in my world, unfortunately.
Or it's like the negative on the other side is like anger, frustration, jealousy, like the really, really negative emotions. It's about like our energy field, right? Like, when you are at this really negative space, like, you're going to be deflecting anything that you want in your life because your energy is just so off. And a lot of times we think that we have to just go immediately to like, I love myself, life is great, everything's positive. And it's like, that's not accessible. So it's like, what is one step above? Okay, I'm just going to stop. I need to just like switch my mindset out of this extreme negative place. So like, can I just be grateful for waking up today? Can I be grateful for my dog? Just finding something to like switch your energy.
Yeah. Right? And even if it's like even if it's shifting to what you pay attention to. Yeah. Because that's huge. Like, if you like, if it's like I saw something on a podcast recently, shocker, that's all I do is watch podcasts, but like the guy was like, look really quick around the room, can you do this for me, and look at the red stuff, can you do it real quick? Can you spot some red stuff, and then close your eyes, and now can you tell me about the yellow things in the room? No.
Well, I knew this had
right
yellow.
but if you're paying attention to the yellow, you'd be like, oh, I noticed more. It's like, so you're noticing what you're noticing, and paying attention is important. Like what we pay attention to is everything. Totally. Even with the breath work, right? It's like paying attention to the breath. Yeah. And I did yoga this morning, and the lady, I half go for just listening to the people, you know, because I really like the practice of it. But she was saying, damn, what were we just saying? I lost it.
About what you focus on. You said focusing on your breath and breath work.
Oh, yeah, the breath work. She said that, you know, a lot of the reason, one of the reasons that, you know, people can, the good thing about breath work is that you have to be in the moment because it's happening right now. Totally. And I never really made that connection. Like, I know it's good to be in the moment, and I know breath work is good, but I just realized, like, they're the same thing. It's like, to be into your breath, you have to be in that exact moment. You know? Yeah,
and I think when it comes to, like, breath work, meditation, I think a lot of people have resistance because they're like, I can't shut out my mind. And one of the best things that you can do with just building like a meditation practice or anything is just like literally just counting your breath. And that in itself is you being in the present moment. Yeah. I think the biggest misconception is like, you're not supposed to have thoughts when you're meditating. Yes. And that deters people from wanting to meditate. It's like, I can't shut my brain out. It's like, well, you're not supposed to. You're just supposed to be noticing what is here.
Noticing it. Yeah. And I'm so excited you said that, because I heard something that helped me so much, because I had an aversion towards meditation for the same reason. Yeah. I'm like, I can't do it. My mind, it's too chaotic. It's too... But Sam Harris, who's a guy who teaches a lot about non-dualistic meditation, he was saying that... when you're trying to meditate and focus on your breath and your mind wanders and you grab it back and put it on the breath, he's like, that's the whole practice. Totally. That's it. You're not doing it wrong. That's doing it. Yep. He's like, when you, not only are you not, because people will go, I'm doing it wrong. You know, you beat yourself up about it and go like but he's like, that's the practice. That is the meditation, is like noticing your mind wander, recognize that it wandered, see that, bringing it back. Totally. It's the whole practice. So it's like, you're not doing it wrong.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a meditation practice. It's not a meditation test. Like,
yes, because you expect to sit down and be like this for 6 hours. No, and you're like, it didn't work.
Absolutely not.
It didn't work.
I sometimes struggle with meditation, and it's just every single person does. Even like these meditation teachers was like, yep, I could not focus this morning, and like, that's okay. That's a part of the practice of it. Right. It's just the fact that you're taking the time to sit down and try to focus on your breathing. And
it's one of those things. It's like, we know we know it'll be good for us, but it's still hard to do.
Of course.
I don't get that.
But again, it's like, it's with habit building. It's not like, one of my teachers, he always says like, the best thing that you can do in order to like receive like the great impacts of meditation, it's best to sit for like 45 minutes. And I'm like, there's no way I can do that, because you know, life is busy, and we we have all these things. So it's like, for me, even just starting, like, I was reading, there's this book. Have you heard of Atomic Habits?
Of course. I probably have it.
Okay, yeah. So Atomic Habits is great because it just breaks down how to build a habit. Like, if you want to learn
functionally,
start meditating, it's like, just at least a non-negotiable is just like sitting down at your mat. Whether you meditate or not,
figure out that barrier.
The barrier, right?
Lower the wall.
Yeah. If
I can
it's
sit
5
down.
minutes.
I can sit. Yeah. Right? Lower that wall that small.
Yes, exactly. Just making it approachable. Right. You know, like 45 minutes to me, it was like my body was immediately like, like,
it's like a giant monster when you talk about it that way.
Yeah. And it's like,
make it a small
and that's
monster.
The thing that's dangerous sometimes, because there's going to be a lot of people who tell you, you have to do it this way. It has to be this way. Or da, 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 da. And it's like, I'm sorry, but if I'm even just taking 5 minutes to meditate in the morning,
it's humongous.
I'm happy.
5 minutes is huge.
Right. Exactly.
By the way, we're so overdone and overstimulated with all this external stuff. 5 minutes is a huge deal.
It is.
And another thing that like is so, I don't meditate I don't even really meditate. Like I pay for a meditation app. I don't use it though.
It happens.
I'm gonna actually do Vipassana at the end of the year, which is like a 10-day silent retreat meditation. Oh, cool. 10 hours a day. It's like pretty tough. Yeah. So I'm gonna, instead of like doing it incrementally and getting bigger, but I lost it again. The meditation is like, I don't know what I'm saying. I lost it. I lost what I was going to say. It couldn't have been important. But meditation is, it's tough to do. It's tough to sit down and do. It's like, I don't think people realize how much is going on in their heads.
No.
You know?
Mm-mm.
There's like, and I can't speak for everyone, so let me say this. I didn't realize how much was going on in my head. Mm-hmm. There's a constant chatter, constant negotiation, a constant everything, and it's like, if you really start to dissect where the thoughts are coming from, no one really, they just pop in. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's okay, and we're not our thoughts, but there's just, for me, there's a constant chatter going on up there.
Yeah.
And it's scary to quiet everything else down, because then you're just left with the storm.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
But then the more you do it, I guess the idea is that the storm slows down.
Yeah. And I love what you said about how that, like, you're not your thoughts. And one of the, like, I think a lot of times, obviously, like, our thoughts can, like, I definitely have times where, like, my thoughts can go to a negative place. I think that happens to every single person. Definitely. Right? But I think it's like when we have these negative thoughts and like learning, like realizing that we are not our thoughts, it's like creating space between our negative thoughts of like, oh, instead of thinking like I'm a piece of shit, it's like, okay, I'm having a thought that I'm a piece of shit. A little bit. Right? Like you are
looking at yourself as a character in a book.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And like you are, your thoughts like are not you. Yeah.
Or your emotions. Like they say like that if you get really good at meditating, then people say that like rather than like being angry, you're like, oh, I'm experiencing this anger. You know, you don't have to sound gay to do it, but I'm just saying like, you know, you don't have to talk like that. I'm just saying that's what it is though. You know, it's a step removed and you're like, you don't become drunk with the emotion.
Totally.
You know, it's separated a little bit.
Yeah, that's so important when it comes to like emotional regulation. It's just like when you are able to create distance between your thoughts, your emotions, like that's how you can really start to see a path forward. It's like, okay, well then how can I start to have an experience of like neutrality of like, okay, if you're angry, and I also just believe in like, if you're angry, like feel it because that's,
don't push it down, don't hide from it, don't run from it.
No, because I mean that's the only way that you can actually get to a place of like genuine neutrality and a genuine path to more positivity is to feel your emotions. I think a lot of times anger, sadness, all of these things, we avoid them because they're seen as bad, and they're not. It's literally just a part of the human experience. In order to, I find that the deeper that you allow yourself to feel the negativity, the sadness, the anger, you can get to that place of bliss, ecstasy, positivity.
It's just about not sitting in that place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So experience that emotion.
Yeah.
But if you're fuming mad 4 days later, probably try to step out of it.
Yeah, you gotta step out of it. You gotta step out of it at that point. Yes, you gotta figure out something.
Yeah. It's feel it, but then also be able to step out of it.
100%.
And it's like, but that step remove, it's like no one's gonna ever be perfect, right? Mm-hmm. Like they say even when a monk bangs his toe on the table, the first thought is like motherfucker, right? Even a monk, right? And the whole thing is like, how long are you sitting in that motherfucker?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they say that meditation and spiritual practice and stuff like that just shortens that time. I don't know what that's called, but I wish there was a word for that time span from when you bump your toe to when you're back at baseline.
Yeah.
Right? So when you get angry and how long, because listen, you're going to get angry. Totally. That's the thing about it. It's like, you're still going to have those things, right? Mm-hmm. And a reaction is okay. Mm-hmm. Then you have to like have a response though. Totally. It's like a reaction just happens and that's okay. How long are we going to let that reaction, you know, be our response?
Yeah, so I'll tell you,
we grab it back.
I'll tell you something. The other day, this past week, I was going through it this week. I was
let's talk about it.
Yeah, I was just kind of, so like I said, I moved home to be here with my mom, and I'm actually going back to Colorado because I'm buying a tiny house, which is really exciting.
Oh, dope.
But it's bringing up a lot for me, and there's just a lot going on in life.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really exciting. It's really cute. If I had my phone, I would show you. Okay. I'll show you next time. I'll show you after. But yeah. So, but there's bringing up a lot for me and a lot of like anger. It's like deep-rooted anger and fear, and like I'm frustrated that I'm here, and like it's just been a lot. And I was sitting in it for like 2 days. And then there came to a point where I was like, I need to just move this energy. So I really love like somatic shaking. Like I could just like, I could feel this. Right, yeah, I could feel this like anger in me, and I'm like, okay, I need to move this energy out. And I just like started shaking and doing all this crazy shit.
That sounds crazy.
It does. But you know what? Literally that day, my mood went like, whoo,
it's not crazy
so
if it
better.
works. What was the old Bud Light commercial? It's not crazy if it works. Because the skeptic in me, again, a few years ago, would have just been like, yeah, okay. you shook out something from your mind, because again, it's such a separate thing for me.
Yeah.
Even just a couple years back. Have you heard of IFS, like internal family systems?
Yes, I love IFS.
Oh my God. So I talked about it on here already, but I'm a skeptic, especially about stuff like that, right? So I was molested as a kid. I don't know if the face tattoos could tell you, but people are usually damaged, you know? But I've worked through that in my head, right? But not just in my head, but in therapy and stuff like that. You know, with psychedelic journeys, you name it, right? I feel like I've done the work. Someone was telling me about IFS, which I have heard about. I keep hearing a little bit more about it. I don't know if it's because my ears tuned to it or the universe is nudging me.
You're interested in it.
But I'm interested in it, and but a skeptical guy, right? Someone was telling me about how you write a letter to your younger self. They said, close your eyes, picture yourself as a kid. I picture myself. They said, how old are you? I said, 6. They said, that's who you need to write a letter to. And this isn't a therapeutic session. This is like a friend of mine, okay? And I'm like, yeah, all right. You know, it just doesn't sound, it sounds a little woo-woo for me, right? And then like a minute later, I just started weeping. I had crying. And it came from a place that wasn't my choice, you know? And that it couldn't... I'm so grateful for that experience because it made me a believer. Now, I'm not saying 100% IFS works, right? I'm just saying, like, this person brought that up to me about, like, a 6-year-old that's still in me, which sounds silly to me, you know? And it made me, like, really sob. And I'm really grateful for that. And it's just, like, it opened my eyes to the whole thing. I'm going to work through it with a therapist for sure.
Yeah.
But have you done it at all?
Yeah.
Really?
So I was in a women's circle around this time last year in Colorado, and every single week we worked on a different part of ourselves. So like our inner child. That's another thing people don't do is like group stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like everyone just links up and watches the game and drinks, which is fine. But like I would love to have a tribe.
Create it.
I know.
You create it. If you want it and you don't have it, that's you. Then you're supposed to create it.
I've talked about that. I need to start a book club, but like a cool one.
Yeah.
Like everything I want to do exists, but like stupid.
Yeah.
You know, like nothing's quite right for me. So you're right. Maybe I just need to make my tribe. How do you make a tribe? You know, find like-minded individuals, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just speaking honestly of what this. I think for you, if you were to do this, I think it's explaining how this has positively affected your life, because that will, possibly get people on board who are like, hey, that I feel like that could benefit my life, or that's something that I could.
Yeah, or just people dedicated to personal growth.
Right.
But sorry for cutting you off. You were in the women's group.
Yeah, so I was in a women's group, and every single week we worked on a different part of ourselves. So we all, we worked on the inner mother, we worked on the inner child, the inner teenager. So there's a
family in you. It's a whole family.
Oh,
that's
I got a whole tribe.
Right. So that's interesting, because I don't know a lot about it. So it's not just a little child who was hurt or whatever. It's
But it's also the different parts of our ego: the skeptic, the judge, the
they're firefighters and shit.
There's a lot of different parts of ourselves that it's important to work with, but a lot of them are old parts of ourselves, different parts of our life that we've lived, like our inner toddler, our inner like a lot of times when someone would be like having we called it like a temper tantrum, it's like, oh, like that's my inner toddler throwing a temper tantrum right now because when she was little she didn't get what she wanted or something like that. So it's I'm like so fascinated. I was on Instagram the other day, and someone posted about this book about parts work, and I screenshotted it because I'm like, okay, and I've actually been focusing on this within some of my community. I have a community online, and I've been
Is it women only?
It right now it is, but
not specifically.
Not specifically, no. But what was I saying? But
you've been working with them.
Yeah, so like we did a whole workshop the other day about like our ego and like shutting out our ego and listening to our soul and things like that. So yeah,
ego's a tough word. Ego's a tough one because it's like everyone. The word itself is demonized, but everyone has an ego. It's like it's part of self-preservation. It's part of like, honestly, your identity.
It is your identity.
It is your ego, so it's not a bad thing.
No, it's
inherently.
Not. No,
you just can't let it run the show.
Totally,
it's the same thing. It's like one of these words like codependency. It gets demonized. It's like codependency is normal at a healthy level. It so easily goes to an unhealthy place, but like the ego is that's interesting.
Yeah, the ego is, I think a lot of times people think it's like, oh, he's so egotistical, he's so full of himself, and it's, your ego is actually a lot of times that hurt, that it's the things that you identify with. Like if there's been things that you've gone through in your life and, like you you identify like, oh, this thing happened to me, so that means that I am weak or I am ugly or all of these things, and you perceive that as your identity. And it's like, you can have like I had an ego death in my ayahuasca experience, and it was just like
ayahuasca, that's right.
Yeah. And it was just like there was no perception of. There was a few women who had an ego death in their ayahuasca experience, and one of them was like literally in the abyss. Like she did not know her name, she did not know anything, and that was an ego death because it was like all she had was her soul.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing that frustrates me about the ego death thing is sometimes when people experience that, they'll go, it kills me when someone's like, I don't have an ego. You never heard this? So like some healers and shit, or some people who are into that thing are like, I experienced ego death, so I no longer have an ego. But no. That's like, no,
that's not true.
No, you're going to have an ego forever. It's
a part of you, but it's that recognition
that it's not you.
Right.
It's not you. It's a part of you. It's like your identity. It's what you think you are.
Yes,
but when you have the death of it, you realize, oh, I'm much deeper than that.
Yeah, it's just you have a deeper understanding of like what's actually going on here.
Your consciousness,
right?
is not your ego.
Exactly, yeah. But an ego death, any healer that tells you that they don't have an ego, I'm sorry, you do have an ego. Every single person has a freaking ego.
That's what I mean. It's not necessarily bad. It's like, it's part of us. It's
right,
one
and
of the
our
parts.
ego, I think a lot of times, like in the personal development space, it's like, oh, my ego tells me that, a lot of times our egos can bring up a lot of mean shit. Like anytime that I'm being hard on myself, I'm like, okay, ego.
Yeah.
But it's also because our ego wants to keep us safe. Like our ego is here.
It's part of the self-preservation.
Yeah. Like it's not here to just hurt us. So it's more about building the relationship with your ego.
Yeah. Have compassion for it.
Yes. Have compassion for it.
It's not trying to hurt you.
Yes.
It can be hurtful in its attempt to help.
Right.
Yeah.
It's throwing all these tactics at you to be like, hey, don't do that. And it's like, okay, I try to have a conversation with it. It's like, okay, I know that you're telling me that, like, when it comes to like getting out of my comfort zone, it's like, okay, I know you're telling me that I'm going to fail. I know you're telling me that I'm never going to be successful and all these things are going to happen. But like, I trust myself that I can figure it out and we're okay. Right. So like, I'm still going to do what I want.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more about building that relationship with your ego than anything else.
And it just sounds like not real, right?
No.
It's like, oh, you're going to build a relationship with something that you've made. It's like,
no. And I will say on my journey, this was one of the things that came through my ayahuasca experience was like learning how to listen to my intuition. And I just always say, I'm one of those people, I can be very logical. It's sometimes very difficult. I remember.
Too logical.
No, I wouldn't say too logical. I'm kind of a mix between like logic and intuition.
Yeah.
But when in my ayahuasca experience, it came so clearly, it was like, you need to start listening to your intuition because your intuition is very strong and you just have to trust yourself. And I'm like, but it's so hard to trust something that I can't see. I can't prove it. I like, sometimes like I'll see visions
want your brain to back it up.
Yeah. I'll hear things or I'll see visions and I'm like, nah, maybe not. Maybe that's not real. Right. And then it happens and I'm like, oh, it was. And it's just learning how to trust ourselves, trusting what we can't see.
Yeah.
And the spiritual journey is hard.
It's super hard too because it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And the intuition I've talked about, like for me, it was hard to differentiate between a fear-based response and my intuition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I would get a feeling that I couldn't put on paper and I'm like not knowing at the beginning of my it's like, is this fear just trying to like not grow, trying to make me not grow, or should I really not go to this thing?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's hard to actually know what's what, but you do know.
Me too.
The thing about intuition, it's like, all the answers. It's the same thing when I read a good like nonfiction self-help book. It's like, I know all the stuff. Mm-hmm. I know, but you read it and you're like, wow, this is fucking incredible. It's like, well, you know what you need to do a lot of the time.
And I think I have been struggling with that as well. Cause I remember a few weeks ago, I was like about to go somewhere and something in me was like, don't go cause something's going to happen. And then I went and nothing happened, but I don't think that was a fear-based response.
Exactly.
But at the moment I was struggling. I was like, wait, is this my intuition trying to help me? But then it was like my intuition knew that it was I was like, I think this might be just a fear-based response. I think our intuition is loud. Our intuition is more of like I don't know. I've heard crazy stories of like people listening to their intuition and it's like, I feel like it's difficult to explain the difference between your intuition and your fear, but when you feel it, like there's been times where I've listened to my intuition and I'm like, I had a feeling about that and I was right. Yeah. It's a different feeling that you can't really explain it, but you just know.
That's what's so tough is the not explaining, right? Yeah. So like even if it was like to go to an event or to a thing or to meet with somebody for the first time or whatever it is, it's like sometimes I would get a gut feeling like I don't want to go do that, right? But so then what I would do is go, well, why not? And if I couldn't put it on paper, not literally, but if I'm like, they seem fine, but it's something, it's like you got to learn to trust that because it's like, but it's so hard because you can't explain it. Yeah. You can't say this is why. You just go, I got a feeling. I don't want to go. I don't even, everything seems great, but there's something in me, Yeah. It's tough.
It's an interesting journey of listening to our intuition. But have you heard of human design? Okay, so human design is this.
But I would love to.
Yeah. It is. I highly recommend if you know like the time that you were born and your birth chart and everything. I've been diving so deep.
It's like astrology.
It mixes astrology with like a few other types of systems, but it is like wildly accurate. And so there's all these different types. So there's a generator, there's a manifestor, there's a projector, there's a reflector, and I'm a generator. And each type has their own type of authority. So like for me, when it comes to when I want to do something, like our authority is like how we make decisions, and my decisions come to my gut. And for me, it's like a yes or no. So like if something is not feeling right, I just have to ask myself. And it's like, when it comes to like our intuition, that day that I was like, I don't know if I should go, I could tell that it was coming from my mind and it was not coming from my gut, because mine is like a very visceral, like, no, this is not right for me. So I think human design can be a really impactful tool to understand yourself and how you make decisions, because and like I said, there's different types. Like there's an emotional type. Like if you're feeling very emotional about something, that could be a sign that you should listen to that, right? Like everyone's different. So if you're listening to this, like look up your human design. Look up your human design, Google it, and you can find out your authority and find out, I could do like a whole other topic about that, but human design has been really, really impactful for me with learning.
Human design. I haven't heard of it, so that's exciting.
Human design. I
go
love
subscribe to this podcast too. And do your podcast. Yeah. What's your podcast called? You got one? Mm-hmm. What's it called? Well, I know you do the coaching thing, and I wasn't sure if the podcast was just part of the coaching stuff or no. It's a separate thing. It's just a podcast.
No, I mean the podcast is, I talk about my coaching on there. It's just like the free platform that people can go kind of get coaching on.
What's it called? The four people who are listening.
Limitless.
Oh, that's right. I knew that. Journey to Limitless.
Yeah, and it's all about paving paths of freedom and not letting our circumstances hold us back and being true to ourselves.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then go look into human design. Let me ask you more about the ayahuasca.
Okay.
How long ago was that?
That was in August.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Pretty fresh.
Yes. Yeah. And then did you do it more than once?
I did 3 ceremonies.
Okay. Over like a week? Mm-hmm. Ooh, where'd you go?
Mexico.
Oh, nice. I want to do peyote in Mexico. It was
a feminine embodiment. So it was a week-long retreat.
All women?
So it was, nice. So it was Cambo.
Shaman women?
So it was the facilitator who facilitated the ayahuasca. He was a man. But then Victoria, she's like a feminine. She just became
like a maestra or something.
Yeah, she just became like not certified, but like now she's able to hold her own ayahuasca ceremony. She had to go through her own training.
Right.
But she's trained in like Cambo.
Oh, well, do you do the Cambo too?
Yeah.
Did you puke like crazy?
Yeah.
Cambo, you know what that is? No. So Cambo is that they burn the stick and then burn you?
Yeah.
So yeah, Cambo for me was for everyone, I guess. They burn a stick, they blow it out, and they burn you, right? Yeah. And then they rub this paste on you that makes you violently ill. It makes your face feel on fire.
Yeah, you get like your whole body flushes with heat.
You're red. You're bright red. My face swelled up.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you throw up really bad. It's like a cleansing process, but it is powerful.
It's really good, I will say, because actually going back to parts work, my second Cambo ceremony that I've ever done was in July of this past summer, and I sat with Cambo, and then that day I was able to connect with my younger self, like as if I was like her. Like, I literally for a moment felt like I was like my 8-year-old self. Like,
during the ceremony or
no,
post?
this was after.
Wow.
I was on a walk and I was just like thinking about that version of myself, and I was just like, it felt like I was looking through life as that 8-year-old version of
brings
myself.
Clarity.
Yeah, it was wild, because I think that a lot of times we search for clarity. We search for a purpose. We search for all these things. And it's like, I think of ourselves as like a bottle almost. And when you're so filled up with trauma, past experiences, all these things that are not serving us, there's no way that you even have the capacity for clarity to come. So you have to like release, you have to let go of all these things that are not serving you in order to have that clarity.
That makes sense. Yeah, you're already full with shit.
Yeah, you're full with shit, and you're like searching for clarity so outside of yourself when like the clarity is within you. You just have to clear out some shit in order to get there, to have that come through.
You can't grab extra shit for clarity.
Totally.
You need to clear some space.
Exactly. Yeah. So Cambo is a really great. I don't recommend Cambo for every single person.
I do. Every single person. Do it right now. Give it to your kids. Give it to your neighbors. Who gives a fuck? No, obviously it's not for everybody. Obviously. Only
do it with like a trusted.
That's the thing.
Do your research on people, because there are shamans.
Anywhere there's money to be made,
there.
there's going to be people taking advantage.
Yeah, people do Cambo one time and are like, I want to do Cambo ceremonies, and it's like, I don't know, I don't trust you, because it's a whole, you have to sign documents, and it's a whole. All right,
Gary, sit down.
Process, right?
Yeah, it's like always some guy named Gary.
It's a whole process, so just do your research. But Cambo can be a really powerful. It's not just like the thing about like even with ayahuasca, the purges, the vomiting and everything. It's like, there's an emotional tie to the vomiting, right? It's like time. You're letting out trauma. You're letting out all these things that are not serving you, toxins, all of these things. In my ayahuasca experience, whenever I needed to vomit, it was just like, I remember the last time that I did. It comes from
a place that's deeper than you.
God, my last ceremony was insane. Like all night, I just felt so terrible.
Mm-hmm. I went through one of those.
Yeah, and I was just like, I kept feeling so bad. I kept having to like go to the bathroom, and then it felt different. I was like, I feel like I need to like throw up though. And so then it just like came through, and I like screamed out like unlike anything. I don't scream. I'm not loud. I'm not a loud person like that. I'm not loud like that. And all that
scream came from beyond you, huh?
Yes.
It felt like something was using you to scream.
Yes. And it felt like this energy like pushed into me. It was like this white light that like pushed into me and like came forward, and it literally was like as it was happening, all I remember saying was like, wow, whoa. It was wild, and it was through that purge.
That's incredible.
Because I let out.
My purging, I didn't throw up. I didn't shit. I did not, but I wanted to.
Yeah.
My body, it was purging in yawns and sighs, and then the one night when I had the really powerful experience, I was like losing it, and I had them come over to me, and I'm like, I feel like I had this very distinct feeling, Courtney, that I was going to turn into a dragon. Okay? I'm not kidding, right? So I said to the guy, like, I'm going to turn into a dragon. And he's like, you just need to breathe, relax. I'm like, yeah, I know, fucking breathe. I'm like yelling at the guys. I'm like, just leave me alone at this point, And he's like, just let it happen, let it happen. I'm fighting it because I genuinely feel, because I don't even know what that means, right? Yeah. I just had this very distinct feeling like, if you let go, you're going to become this thing, this dragon, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what that looks like. I've never been a dragon, Courtney. So I was genuinely concerned for my health, the people near me, because I'm laying on mats with people. I don't know what I'm going to do. I feel like I will lose all control. And he's like, just let go. So I lay back and I go, fine. And I lay back and I let out this shriek, this scream that was fucking lifted me off the ground of the pagoda. I mean, it was insane. It felt so good. Yeah. It was like the biggest yawn, cum shit. Sorry for the every release you can imagine. It was like, it felt like, and then I did it over and over. Like every time I exhaled, I was screaming, and people were like, you could hear people commenting about it. It was like, it was just like, it was the next day. This guy Scott, who's 41, he told me, he said, Justin, somehow your trip is the craziest thing that I've ever experienced because everyone was going through it with me,
Yeah.
But I can't. It's so interesting that you screamed as well. A lot of people weren't screaming in my ceremony. You know, I was like uniquely me at the ceremony sets. It felt so good.
Well, it's funny because I like even in breath work, like I don't yell.
Right.
Like I'm a very like whenever I'm in an emotional process, I'm more like gentle, And then in ayahuasca, the other two nights, I definitely was, I had emotional releases as well. The first night, I was screaming, crying.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was great for what felt like 45 minutes. It was just like this deep grief that I never allowed myself to process. And then
Do you know what it was about? You don't have to tell me, but do you know?
My mom. Okay. Like my mom's
sometimes
health.
You don't even know what it's from.
Yeah, no, this was my mom's health. My mom's health took a really drastic turn last year. Like I said in the what we were saying. Even before that, and it's just the realization that like it's like impending grief, like worried when my mom's gonna pass away, and it was just like
anticipatory grief.
Yeah. Yes, that's the word. Anticipatory grief, and it so it was just very, very deep, and I never allowed myself to like realize, because when I'm with my mom, a lot of times it's just like fight or flight. It's like, okay, this is happening, she's having this experience, and it's like, oh wow, my ayahuasca was the first time that it was just like, wow, you're really sad that this is happening. Like, fuck, this sucks, and it was really deep
and hard.
Yeah, but it was beautiful at the same time. Like,
well, that's the pain and purpose and tragedy and beauty.
It was like, I was so grateful for ayahuasca, because I was like, wow, thank you so much for allowing me to experience this. Like, I needed this so badly.
It's one of the most difficult and beautiful things I've ever done.
Yeah.
Probably the most difficult and beautiful thing I've ever done.
I really built a relationship with ayahuasca. Like, she's definitely a medicine for me.
She kicked my fucking ass.
Yeah, she did.
She kicked my fucking ass. I thought I'd end up in the psych ward, I thought I was losing it. So the second ayahuasca ceremony, I thought that my ego death was actually me thinking that I was physically gonna die. Like This is too extreme. I thought if I let go to this and see what they want me to see, or go into the door, because it's almost like these doors of perception that's like, let go, but I'm fighting it, and you're supposed to not fight it, right? But it's like the craziest thing you've ever fucking experienced. So sometimes your inclination is to fight it. And I thought, if I let go to this, my brain is going to melt out of my ears for having seen too much, or my heart's going to stop. It's just, it's too much. Yeah. I thought I was going to die too.
Yeah.
It's bad, but you don't.
No. I was seeing in my mind, like, girl dies in Mexico at ayahuasca retreat, and I was like, no! And then also what came through was like the age that I'm gonna die. And I was like, no, I don't want to see it. I don't want to know. And then it showed me, and I was like, ah! And I was like freaking out. I was screaming out loud, and I was just like freaking out. And then the woman came over to me. She was like, I freaking loved her. She was like, it doesn't mean that you're actually physically going to die. It could just mean that like something, you could have like a, death and rebirth at that age. Yeah. It just means that could be a really impactful year for you.
Some people say that ayahuasca is death and rebirth.
Yeah, I 100%. Like, I got this tattoo actually after my ayahuasca experience.
Nice.
Because I literally felt like the second night it's a butterfly
with like fractures.
Because when I was in the jungle, there was the most beautiful blue butterfly just kept dancing through the
So your place is in like a jungle?
Yeah,
Mine
it was
too.
incredible.
That's the best way to do it. It's
so
like,
good.
yes, you can do it in the States. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to knock however you're healing.
Totally.
But for me, like going to where the ayahuasca's from.
You went to Peru?
I went to Peru,
to
the Amazon jungle.
Oh, wow.
And just go, being surrounded by the plants, because they say like the gurus aren't the teacher. Don't follow the gurus, follow the plants. Like they're the real teachers, not the people. But the screaming, so that it only happened the one night basically when you were doing the screaming, or no? All of
my nights were different.
Yeah, mine
too. They were all impactful in their own way. Like the first night for me was that deep. So it was funny because I pulled a card, the tarot card the first night, and it was all about like the journey, and it was talking about like how I was going to gain all this clarity and all these things. And I was like, well, I don't think that it was like my intuition again. It was like, well, I think that this is going to talk about like your general experience over this week, but I don't think that clarity is going to come tonight, because I think tonight is like you got to release, you got to let go of shit. And the first night for me was that really deep grief around my mom's health. I mean, that was like basically the entire experience. Yeah. And then the second night,
hours too.
Hours.
Those who don't know, it lasts
literally
like 5-6 hours.
It was a long time.
Yeah.
And the first part, well, funny because the first part of it, when you're like scared when ayahuasca's kicking in, I was seeing all this like weird, weird shit. No, I was like, how is this gonna be like powerful when I'm seeing like weird like bowling like thing? I'm things are bowling in my mind. Like I'm playing bowling, and I'm like, how is this going to be impactful? Yeah. And it ended up being really impactful because the journey changes.
They say that the visions aren't even what does it. They say that sometimes they're a distraction. You know, like the real healing, and that's why it's hard to describe too, because people will say, what did you see? And it's like it's so you're not seeing with your eyes. No. You're like feeling like the color blue. Totally. You ever felt blue? Like the color? You ever felt the red? Like you can't explain it because the way you're experiencing these colors or shapes isn't with your eyes. That's so hard to explain. I'm not claiming that you're in a different dimension or you're in the spirit realm. Let's call it a chemical reaction. Whatever it is, right? Because I'm not claiming to know. You're not seeing it. So that's why it's so ineffable, because you try to show this to somebody, and you go, you try to alchemize it down for someone to understand, and you're like, I have no idea.
Yeah, for me, it was like the deep feelings. Like at that point when the impact really started to happen, I wasn't really like, yes, like things were beautiful. Like the whole atmosphere was just beautiful, but it wasn't like I was seeing shit happening. It was just more of like an inner knowing and a feeling and emotion. And the first night also was, like I said, I have ulcerative colitis, and one of the things that I have been really working on over the last year is healing my ulcerative colitis. And what came through in that night was like she was helping me heal. She was helping me get out the root causes of my ulcerative colitis through the bathroom, which at first I was very resistant. I was like, why do I have to keep going to the bathroom? And then towards, about the 15th time, I was like, okay, she's helping me clear myself out. Right. Got it. Which, wasn't lovely, but it is what it is.
And like you said, there's more than physical too, though. It's like it's purging of all kinds. People puke, people shit, people yawn, people cry. It's like getting it out in whatever way your body feels necessary. Like I wanted to puke so bad and I couldn't. It was like
there were a lot of women who like couldn't puke the entire time, but they were again, it's like recognizing that you're not doing anything wrong if you're not physically puking. It's just that's the way that your body like there's people who do like 12 dots of Cambo who cannot purge, like physically purge, but they're yawning, they're screaming, they're shaking. Like that's a purge in itself, right? And
getting it out.
And my second night was around like most of the big experience of that was like around the death, like literally feeling I was gonna die. But I think that came through for one, because I did feel the ego death, but also because all my life I've had a deep fear of death. I've been so motivated by like, I need to get the most out of my life because I have no idea when I'm going to die.
Of your mortality.
And it was to the point, it was like, I was doing a lot of things out of a fear state and like rushing around my life. And I think what came through that night is like, there's no reason to fear death, because even if I were to die, everything would be okay. Like what would happen if I did?
Well, you're going to, and it's going to be okay.
Right. Everything would be okay. And it just gives me, I truly walk my life now with so much of a deeper, like peace. Like I don't have to rush, or I don't rush shit anymore. Like I just I have a lot of dreams in my life, but I'm just like, okay, I will do that one day. And you
don't have to be stressful or from a place of fear.
Yeah. And then that came through that I was planning to move to Greece. It came through that Greece is like my next, obviously I'm going back to Colorado, but I'm eventually going to move to Greece. Nice. That came through very clearly for me as well. And then the whole rest of that night, I was just like, then I got to the bliss state. You have to go through like the shit. And then I was like laying on my mat, just like, oh my God, I'm going to move to Greece. And it was amazing. And then the third ceremony, it was really difficult at first because I felt really sick. I had that deep purge. I literally rebirthed, like that's the emotion. And then the whole rest of the night was like bliss that I've never experienced in my life. I remember I was sitting next to my friend and I was just like, I am obsessed with my life. But I had to go through all the shit to get there. So, but I love ayahuasca, and
it's intense. It's one of those things. It's like, I'm also like very aware of my mortality. But that helps motivate me to live. It's like not, it's like, okay, just remember, that everything's temporary. Go do the things. It's like life's too short to not try the ayahuasca, for me. So I went and did it, but it was like, for me, it was like, it didn't like hone in on anything specific, right? So when I'm screaming like that, I have no idea why. So
that's okay too.
Yeah, I know. So that's what. So the next morning, we get to talk to the shaman about our experience or whatever, and through a couple translators, But I say I'm like kind of a little upset because like I went through it and I was just screaming and didn't know what the fuck was going on. So I'm like, how is this beneficial? Same thing with the bowling thing. It's like, how is this helping? I'm here to help myself and heal. I screamed at the top of my lungs for hours last night. Why? You know, and the guy basically is like, look, you're healing for 7 generations before you and 7 generations after you. Like, the healing goes down to like a DNA, cellular, epigenetic level that's deeper than you. You're a part of this giant consciousness. Like, you're, you know, and I'm not claiming that this is true. This is just what the shaman told me, and it made me feel so much better about it. It was like, well, even if I don't know exactly why, something in me needed to scream.
Yes.
And it needed to scream bad.
Yeah.
You know, it felt crazy.
Yeah.
So
and
good.
I'm so glad that you had that experience, because, and I think it's just really speaking to that you don't always have to know. I think a lot of times what's more beneficial lately, why I have one of my really good friends, she's actually, you know, we've talked a lot about therapy on here, and talk therapy, I also see a talk therapist, but also I think there's a lot of benefit to going deeper than talk therapy, because a lot of times the deep work, we don't always know exactly what's like. What I'm finding is in talk therapy, we're not actually able to get to like the deep root of things, because a lot of times we're not aware of the trauma that's actually being stored. Yeah, exactly. We're not getting to the roots and working with the body, you know, through these somatic experiences, breath work, meditation. If you feel called to plant medicines, like that's how you can get to sometimes these really deep rooted causes. And you don't need to know where that scream's coming from. Just the fact that you let it out, like,
it is real. It's real.
Yeah, it's real. It was there.
It's there.
And I don't think there's any denying that. Even if you don't understand why, it's like, well, that needed to come out and I don't need to know why.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'm really interested in the somatic side of things because again, it's been largely a stone unturned in my life, because I'm like, yeah, okay. But I've heard about like ecstatic dance and like, I've heard all these ecstatic dance is basically when, it's exactly what it sounds like, I guess.
Yeah.
You just dance however you want. There's like, I don't know. They say that there's always like this, when people are dancing, they're trying to like look away, you know? So it's, I guess, dancing without the idea of any type of judgment, and people are just like moving in the craziest ways you could imagine.
It's intuitive movement.
Just listen to your body, let it follow the music in a way that like will look weird. You're going to look fucking weird, right? But no one, it's like something about that supposedly is like really healing.
Oh my God. So yeah, I love ecstatic dance.
Wow.
There's some communities in like the Baltimore and Washington,
I'm
DC.
out there. I'm gonna be out there.
Yeah, I just went to one last month in Washington, DC, and
really?
towards the
You just went to one last month? That's so dope.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, you should go.
I've never known anyone to do it. I've only like heard of it online.
I'll go with you.
Cool.
So last month, and then I went to one this like a few weeks ago on a Sunday it was like a women's ecstatic dance, and the one in DC that I went to about a month ago, yes, when we started to slow down, I literally had a somatic release. Like I was crying on the dance floor.
It sounds so good. Doesn't that sound crazy?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just I think it's the intention that you do it. If you're even, you don't even need to go to an ecstatic dance. Even if you just want to like set aside time in your room to like, if you don't feel comfortable going to an ecstatic dance, just setting aside that time in your room to just dance how your body just wants to move. It's like tuning into your body. Like, okay, what does my leg want to do? What does my arm want to do? Like, how does this music make me want to move my body? And yes, it's going to look weird.
Yeah.
But
getting out of your mind and getting into your body.
Yes. Yep. That's exactly what it is. It's embodiment, being in your body.
Yeah.
But it's really powerful. And when I was at the women's one, I literally felt like I was like dancing with spirit. Right. Which might sound crazy to some people, but like,
but I'm here for it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm aware enough to know, like, this might sound crazy, but this is what it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's always like, it's just so funny.
But you got to feel that.
Oh yeah.
Right?
It's a feeling that you can't prove.
Yeah. But you don't need to.
But you don't need to.
You felt it.
I felt it for sure. And it was just like, whoa. It was wild.
Yeah.
It was absolutely wild.
That's crazy. So that's crazy. What kind of music are they playing? Is it fucking flutes and wild shit?
All different types. Like, well, I don't remember what song it was, but when I went to the ecstatic dance, it's really well known.
Oh, really? They're playing like popular music?
The one song was, and we were all like, I wish I knew the name of it. But it's
Crank That Soldier Boy?
No, it's like popular these days, now.
Yeah, I wouldn't know that.
I don't know the name of it, but it threw us all off.
Right.
I'll say that, because at first, it's that deep, I don't know, melodic,
right. The old
drums
school,
and flutes and stuff like that. And then they threw in
Are you blindfolded or no?
No.
Okay.
No. You might as well be, because truly
I know some places
you're
do that where it's like, so that way
yourself.
no one's looking at you, you're not looking at you type thing, like some places.
No. I mean, yes, maybe some of them are, but the ones that I've gone to have not. I've never been blindfolded during ecstatic dance, but yeah. But dancing is a great, fun way to practice embodiment, for sure.
And it sounds like something that, is also counterintuitive, especially for men, you know? Like a lot of guys are like, no, I just don't dance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
then we don't have to.
A lot of times men are the ones who are storing the most trauma.
Well, it's part of pulling your bootstraps up and one foot after another.
Yeah.
You know, no one cares.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. That's why you got to create a tribe.
You do.
Of people who give a fuck and are committed to like healing themselves, you know?
Yeah. Once you heal, I mean, really healing yourself is the first step. I think a lot of times there's a misconception that if you heal yourself, it's not going to pour out into the world. But the more that one person chooses to heal themselves, then you have a whole tribe of people who are healing themselves. All it really starts, all we really need is one more person to do the work. To
begin healing. It's like, you're not going to be healed.
No.
That's another thing too. Like there's a quote that's like, I'll never be fully healed, and I couldn't be happier about that.
Yeah.
Because you always get to improve. You always get to grow. It's like,
it's deepening.
Yeah. And it's not like you're going to heal, and then once you're healed, now you can share it. It's like, no, start your process. And then just by doing that, you're going to help people around you.
Yeah,
you just
and
are.
I myself have kind of gone through this because imposter syndrome can creep up sometimes where I'm like, oh my God, I'm not at this space. I can't help people. But it's like, when looking back at the work that I've done, like I'm a completely different person than who I was even like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And it's like, I've done enough work that I could be able to help. I am helping other people with it. And I think, yes, it's like, if you're just even getting started, you can help someone else get started. Right. You don't have to be so far ahead, and you don't have to be a guru or a shaman or anything.
Well, I get those same thoughts about this podcast itself, right? Because like, I don't have a niche, to go back to the niche thing. It's like, because sometimes I want to talk this, and then sometimes I want to do dick jokes. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't
but
have
that's you.
That's the thing.
You.
That is
you.
authentically me, because then it's like, I also want to help people, right?
Yeah.
I genuinely am concerned with like alleviating human suffering, right? As much as we can. But who the fuck do I think I am, right?
Yeah.
You're not important. You're not funny. No one wants to listen to you. You're not wise. No, you don't know shit. You know what I mean? It's like, I get those feelings. It's like, who do you think you are, Joe Rogan? It's like, I doing the podcast with Najee, I was open about my molestation on the podcast very publicly. Mm-hmm. And I've had more than one person come up to me and say, thanks to you being so open about that, I was able to share that with someone about themselves. Yeah. And like that alone could make me die happy, like for real. Like, because I know how heavy that is. I had carried it for years without telling anybody. So like, it's working.
I feel
it's
like
working. It's the thing.
We didn't really know each other.
Yeah.
And I think that you messaged me on Instagram.
Sounds right.
And you told me about that experience, and I think you mentioned something about vulnerability, and then you opened up about that, and I was like, but I love that. Like, it's just slaying shame. It's like there's no shame in what you experience, and by you showing and being vulnerable, it helps people not feel so ashamed of what they went through. I have chills right now, because like
it's huge.
That's everything, because so many people are like just hiding with all this shame of what they've experienced, and like, we're all just humans, and we've all been through stuff, and there's like, the more that we can open up and share, the less people are going to be suffering alone.
Exactly. And then not talking about it helps the abusers.
Yeah.
That's it. Because it's like, so many people have been inappropriately touched, right? And don't speak a word of it ever, because they feel a certain way, or they'll be judged a certain way. And then you have statistics that are like, people who are molested go on to molest, which is like a statistic that's disgusting to me, because that's discouraging people from coming out and saying they've been molested, right? Maybe they're a babysitter and they don't want to say they've been molested, because somebody might, because but I think that so many people have been molested that we're not asking, right? It's like, if someone molests someone and we get them and we go, hey, have you been molested? They say, yeah. It's like, well, look at all these people. But then 15 people that you saw at the grocery store today have been molested, and they're not molesting people, It's like, it's a data flaw to me, Yeah.
When I was at the women's retreat, we had a whole day about like sexual trauma, and every single woman that was there, we all had our own stories to tell.
Bet. And that's the reality. And it's like,
then, but if no one would have opened up, no one would have known, wow, you've been through something similar as me. And vulnerability really builds connection. Like, that day was like so profound for our group was like, wow, we all really get each other. We're not alone in this experience.
Feels good.
It does feel good.
Like, it's like almost like, I hate to use the word sexual because it's not sexual, but it feels so good. It's like this, like, it's like I don't know what it is, but yeah, when you really connect, deep
connection.
Yeah, it's that very deep, like it feels deeper than you. You know, it's like you get that feeling where it's like, wow, this is powerful stuff. Vulnerability is contagious.
Yeah,
you know?
it is.
It's one of those things where like when you're vulnerable, other people are vulnerable. And I've had people, so again, when the imposter syndrome kicks in, and I'm like, who do you think you are? It's like, well, I am funny, and I can help people, even just by being vulnerable.
And I would say about how you have different parts of yourself is that a lot of like if this was just a podcast about healing and all these things, sometimes that doesn't feel approachable, but the fact that you also have episodes talking about dick jokes and things like that, it makes it more approachable, because it's like it doesn't have to, like you're not just like this very serious person, and it makes it more approachable.
I agree, because sometimes that would turn me off. The big thing in the spiritual world and in the self-help world is a lot of times you got the people who are just like and then it's like, hey, pass me that. It's fucking, it's corny. It just is. You're like, hey, can you pass me that water? And he's like, we are water. It's like, bro, I'm thirsty. Give me the fucking bottle of water. It can come off as corny to me, but there's something about it. Coming from someone who's like, hey, I know this is corny, but it works, because it's almost heavier. Because I'm like, I'm a skeptic. Totally. I don't want to believe in IFS. Totally. That shit sounds corny to me, right? Yeah, it just does. I don't want to believe in that. But like when I cried the other night, unprompted, or I guess it was prompted, but it didn't come from me. So it's like undeniable. Yeah. Undeniable. Okay, nice.
No, I agree. And I think that's kind of my vibe as well, because sometimes it's like we try to fit ourselves in a box. I'm like, oh yeah, I talk about spirituality, I talk about these things, and like, but I also like, I listen, it was funny, I was talking, when it came to like music, because I listen to like this, like, my mom laughs because like I'm in the car and I'm listening to like meditation music, and then the next song is like this like
rap
dance song, and I'm like, because you get to be both, right? Exactly. You get to be in touch with your spiritual side, you get to be curious about that, but you also get to tell dick jokes and be funny.
It's like inside of me there's a hood rat and a monk.
Yeah,
that's what I say. It's like,
but that makes you you.
Yeah, there's two wolves in everyone. I have a hood rat and I have a monk, and it's like there's a constant battle between those, but it makes me me, and I don't want to get rid of either one.
No, and
it's like I like both of them in there,
and that makes you, and that's gonna help you stand out. Like someone's gonna vibe with your podcast because they're like, oh, I come there for the funny jokes, and I also come there because he keeps it real about spirituality, and he makes it approachable. Like that's what's gonna make you stand out.
Authenticity is the brand. Yeah, just trying to be as authentic as possible.
Exactly. That's
why what feels good.
Like I don't say have a niche. I don't think a niche is a thing anymore. It's like just be yourself.
That's the niche.
So you are the niche. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I've been talking about that a lot lately.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, stop trying to fit into somebody else's niche or some clearly defined niche.
Yeah, exactly.
It's tough for me too, because people are so dynamic and nuanced. It's like I'm into spirituality, but I'm not a spirituality guy, right? I'm into going to the gym. I'm not a gym guy. I smoke weed. I'm not a weed guy. It's like I'm dynamic. I just don't make a lot of times people will put their whole personality into a thing, which is fine. But for me, it doesn't seem honest. It's like I'm a lot of things, depending on the day.
Totally, yeah. And that, like I said, that's going to help you stand out in the long run. Like when it comes to this podcast, someone's going to click on this because they're like, he's real, and I like him because of all the different parts of yourself. Someone's going to connect with some of them. So
well, I'm sure people feel the same about your podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
Journey to Limitless. You have guests on? Maybe I'll come on there.
Yeah, I do have guests.
I just invited myself.
You can come on my podcast. I like to have, this was a great conversation. Okay, cool. So I would love to invite you on the podcast for sure.
It felt very organic. That's the thing too. It's like, that's all I want to do, I'm not against like a pre-list questions and like a through line, because I'm a little ADHD and all over the place. Mm-hmm. But it feels the most organic to me. It's just to be like, how would we normally talk, Yeah,
for sure. I usually do an outline, but I always tell my guests, I'm like, I have the outline, because sometimes you get guests, and like sometimes I'll find guests on someone will recommend someone, not Craigslist, someone, and it's like I haven't connected with them before, and sometimes the conversation I get a little,
feels a little forced,
a little dry, and sometimes it's helpful to have like an outline of
I
questions.
Could probably benefit from an outline. Honestly, I'm like all the fuck over the place, but I'm like one of those car dealership blow up things.
But that makes this podcast you as well.
Yeah, the 4 people who do like it, you know? They like it. They tell me. So, well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate that. Journey to Limitless is the podcast.
Yes.
And you offer coaching, which they can reach to you.
Yeah, I have a website. I'll give it to you. You can plug it. It's jtl-lifecoaching.com.
Perfect. Then we'll put that in the description.
Yeah.
And subscribe to this, or I'll start mailing bombs. And thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Cool.